The idea is always to bring together a relatively limited number, about 40 to 50 people maximum, group of leading thinkers and policymakers from across Europe to exchange freely and off the record on the most important issues facing Europe at the time.
For solving all the big issues of our time, starting from irregular migration, over climate change, over terrorism, over how to challenge the United States and China and the new technologies and so on. So there is a big issue for having a common European policy.
The European Union is in a very challenging situation at the moment. First of all, the international environment is considerably changing, so it has to step up its external policies from foreign policy to security and defense, but also it has to review its approach to trade and then also global governance issues such as climate change. And that will be a big task for the next 5 years.
One of the largest member states in the big scheme of...
I think the European Union has to be able to make its choices, and what I mean by able to make its choices is that it has to have the capacity to act and therefore also to choose. And this really goes to one of the main issues that we've been discussing over the course of the seminar, which is really the question about European sovereignty and European autonomy.
In my intervention, I wanted to focus on Africa challenge because I strongly believe that the Africa challenge will define European Union as a global actor, as a soft power in the near future, and at the same time it will define also our ability to stay together as Europeans.
Το προσφυγικό ζήτημα που έχει να κάνει ιδιαίτερα με την Αφρική, της οποίας ο πληθυσμός πολλαπλασιάζεται. Τα επόμενα 20 χρόνια θα έχουμε, εάν δεν γίνουν πράγματα στην Αφρική, μεταναστευτικές και προσφυγικές ροές πάρα πολύ μεγάλες προς την Ευρώπη. Άρα η ευρωπαϊκή ατζέντα πρέπει να βάλει σαν προτεραιότητα το θέμα της ανάπτυξης της Αφρικής.
Our problem is where do we position ourselves in the great power game between the Russians and the Chinese and the Americans. For instance, how do we manage to defend ourselves? How do we generate growth, which is very anemic? So I think these are the important questions. They're also the very hard questions.
Push for more integration.
Our national politicians always take credit for what's happening in Brussels or elsewhere. They give press conferences only to their national journalists saying, you know, I managed to do this or that, which means that in the long run, there's no explanation of institutions which are supposed to work for consensus, for the common good. There's need to be more explanation, more media exposure, more transparency when it comes to the workings, which are complex, of our European institutions.
I believe that the new Commission has to try, together with individual member countries, to understand that Europe is not only just a liberalizer and a regulator, but it's also a Europe that protects.
There's a strong appeal to the new leadership of the EU institutions to give a brighter future for the European and the European citizens. We spoke to President Trump on behalf of 500 million Europeans.